Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got a fantastic show for you this morning. Some topics, some mornings it's hard to pick out topics, and some mornings there's ones that just jump right out at you. And we got a couple stories for you today, especially this first one that just jumped off the page when I first read it. And the first one we're going to talk about is a Dallas salon owner has been jailed, jailed out in Texas for violating the reopening qualifications, so to speak. And then the second topic we're going to talk about is old Joe Biden. Is he really in danger of being pushed aside? There's been a lot of talk about that, but most of it's been just that. But now it seems like there are people, and there's some polling out there that we're going to talk about, that showed that the Democrats, based primarily off of this Tara Reade situation, the woman that accused him of sexual assault back in the 90s, that may be gaining some traction, as well as other things and shining the light on Biden in general. And then a story I hope we get to that we weren't able to get to yesterday is about CNN asking Donald Trump's campaign to cease and desist with some advertising that they are doing. But we start from Dallas, Texas, from an NBC article. Dallas salon owner gets 7 days in jail for reopening during coronavirus lockdown. A Dallas salon owner on Tuesday was sentenced to 7 days behind bars for disobeying coronavirus shutdown orders, doing business well ahead of even the aggressive reopening plans for Texas. So I like how they talk about this aggressive reopening plans. Like any type of reopening plan right now is aggressive. I mean, to me, it's more about the oppressive shutdown than the aggressive reopening. I don't see us as opening aggressively. Are we opening too soon? That's certainly potentially debatable. But are we aggressively opening? I don't see how you could say that. But I thought I'd look up the word aggressive to see just how they may be using it in this particular context. Because if you hadn't seen my show before, first of all, where you been? Howdy, welcome, glad to have you here. But words matter. I come from a long line of school teachers on both sides of my family, and I was taught that words absolutely matter. So one of the definitions I found for aggressive was this: pursuing one's aims and interests forcefully, sometimes unduly so. That sounds more like what our politicians are doing to us than anything that business owners are trying to do to reopen. It seemed, let me read that one more time and see if you agree with me. I think this word aggressive fits the way the politicians have locked us down, so to speak, rather than describing how business owners are acting. Aggressive, pursuing one's aims and interests forcefully, sometimes unduly so. To me, that describes our government right now. From the White House down to the outhouse, from Park Avenue to Park Bench, it kind of describes what's happening in our country. Dallas County Judge Eric Moy, and I don't know much about this person at all, but in this particular article, I don't think they come off very well. Dallas County Judge Eric Moy held Shelley Luther, that's the owner of the salon, called Salon a la Mode, and her corporate entity, Hot Mess Enterprises. I love that name. That's a good name. For both criminal and civil contempt. So they're holding her for both criminal and civil contempt. So I thought I'd look up once again, words matter, contempt. The offense of being disobedient to or disrespectful of a court of law and its officers. Well, I guess that's a matter of opinion, and the judge certainly seemed to find that she was of contempt. And I got to tell you, I feel a lot of contempt for what's going on right now, and I know a lot of Americans share my opinion. Now, I'm not necessarily advocating that we go out and hold contempt against courts and the political leaders, although I'm certainly feeling it. I haven't done a lot of that. I in fact, have complied quite a bit. but I am feeling a great deal of contempt for what our political apparatus, if you want to call it, or apparace, it seems more like, is pushing on the American people. I have a lot of contempt for that. And I think I understand why people are motivated to just stand up. And I actually applaud this lady. And when you hear what she had to say to the judge, man, I think you're going to find her to be a hero. At least I do. Moy cited the refusal of the defendant, the salon owner, to cease operation of the salon, despite the clear and unambiguous language of the order. Now, it sounds to me like a little bit like King George. You know, this order is clear, unambiguous, and this is what you got to do. And by King George, I'm talking about old George the Third. I'm not talking about George Bush or any of the Bushes. I'm talking about the one that we rebelled against and started this country, this great experiment we call the United States of America, the one that we fought against in England. Moy went on to say, the defiance of the court, that's the judge, the defiance of the court's order was open, flagrant, and intentional. So this woman just opening up her shop for business is flagrant and intentional. I guess in a sense it was. That she said she's got to open up. And you'll be amazed, well, I'm going to say amazed, but I think you'll be heartened. If you're anything like me, if you agree with me at all, I believe you'll be heartened by her response. And we're going to get to, I want to build it up because it is pretty amazing. The defiance of this court's order was flagrant and intentional. The defendants, although have been given an opportunity to do so, have expressed no contrition, remorse, or regret for their contemptuous action. Now keep in mind, this woman is just trying to open up her beauty salon so that her employees and her can make money and, by the way, serve the community. I mean, later on today, after the show, I'm taking my little dog. I took her to one vet yesterday, and vets are open, curb service and all that. She got a clean bill of health. It was her time for her annual checkup. And today actually, I'm taking her to the groomer. So my dog can get a haircut, but I can't. My wife stepped up to the plate and gave me this beautiful haircut. I mean, look what she had to work with. But contemptuous action. And, you know, I'm thinking, let me read this part one more because it reminds me of something. The court said the defiance of the court's order was open, flagrant, and intentional. Keep in mind, what they're asking for her to do is to apologize to the court for opening up her own business. The defendants, although have been given an opportunity to do so, have expressed no contention, so she rebelled, expressed no contrition, remorse, or regret for their contemptuous action. You know, I got to believe that that's kind of how the original Tea Partiers felt, right? The ones there in Boston after they had the Tea Party. Don't you think they did? Do you actually think that the people in Boston that stood up to the King George III, do you think they expressed contrition, remorse, regret for their contemptuous situation? I mean, not only did they not express remorse, but they declared war eventually at the Declaration of Independence from King George. So to me, the original Tea Party patriots probably could be accused of exactly what this shop owner is being accused of. But Moy, in his ruling, this is what he ruled. It's amazing to me. Luther, that's the shop owner, was reprimanded to the custody of Dallas County Sheriff's deputies and shall be confined in penal facility of the choosing of the sheriff. So in other words, put in jail, where she shall remain for a period of 7 days. So keep in mind that while we're letting prisoners out in many places of the country to keep them from contracting coronavirus, apparently it's okay to jail beauticians. I mean, is this the New World Order? Is this the new United States of America order? Because if it is, then we may not be, as I say at the top of my show, experiment called the United States of America, because it is an experiment. And I got to tell you, if I had to grade our government at this moment in time, many parts of it would be getting a failing grade. So this experiment is definitely in jeopardy. And if we keep being apathetic, and I love this lady, she's not apathetic, then if we keep being so, we're going by the wayside. There's no guarantee that our country will survive. Obviously there's no guarantee that individuals survive, because Everybody's going to die someday. Maybe not today, but someday, and some will, unfortunately, pass on today. But we are, if you tuned into my show the last couple of days, you'll know one of the things I've been saying, and if I say it, it bears repeating, is that we are in literally a post-constitutional age. If you look at it, we're not following the Constitution at all. And I go back to that New Jersey governor when he was on Tucker Carlson's show a few weeks ago, when Tucker Carlson asked him about how do you get the authority to basically usurp the Bill of Rights, he looked directly in the camera, chuckled a bit, and said, well, the Bill of Rights never crossed my mind. That's frightening. And apparently this judge probably feels the same way. A defendant, Luther, that's the shop owner, who faces at least $3,500 in fines. Keep in mind, this is a woman who says she's got to go back to work to feed her kids, and they're going to fine her $3,500. So the government says, hey, you're hurting for money, take that. And they'll probably raise the taxes on these people and business fees to boot. At least $3,500 in fine, argued with the judge that she was trying to prevent her children and employees from going hungry. So she tells the judge that the reason why she opened up is to prevent her children and her employees' children from going hungry. What should be done with her? How about off with her head? I mean, we just got to destroy her, right? But Luther went on to say, and before I read this paragraph, I want to show you a meme that I've been posting lately about what I think is happening in our country. I call it the show danger of freedom meme. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we are being we're being kind of conditioned, if you will, that if you stand up for your freedom, if you stand up for your rights, you're being selfish. And this judge literally said that to her. We're being shamed if we don't comply. So what is next? And this woman's put in jail. Are we going to bring back? I talked about the rack yesterday, because I feel like as citizens we're being put to the rack and stretched pretty thin. But are we going to bring back the block where they put people up, like that for public humiliation? If you don't wear a mask, I mean, that's what's happening right now. If you don't wear a mask, you're being publicly shamed in many cases, destroyed on Facebook and stuff like that. But is that what we're heading for, or we need a block? But listen to this. I get really sometimes, I don't say depressed, but certainly very concerned about the future of the nation. Not just the future with coronavirus, but mainly the future of just basically obliterating the Constitution. What we're doing right now is worse than amending it or repealing it. We're ignoring it. And to me, that is far, far worse, because it puts out this idea that somehow we're actually following it when we are not. But this is what Luther said. The defendant in this case, the lady that wanted to open up or did open up her salon, she said, she told this to the judge, I have to disagree with you when you say I am selfish, because feeding my kids is not selfish. I have hairstylists going hungry because they'd rather feed their kids. If you think the law is more important than kids being fed, go ahead with your decision. But I'm not going to shut my salon. And she went on to say, and I'm not apologizing for it. Think about this. The woman is facing jail time, a $3,500 fine, which I'm sure she's going to have a hard time paying. And she's willing to stand up to the judge and say, I'm not apologizing. And if you think that the law is more important than feeding my kids and my employees too, then do what you got to do. I mean, wow. That gives me when I first started reading this story this morning and putting my edits in it and everything, my notes, it really brought kind of tears to my eyes. And I'm not kidding you. I get emotional. I don't get too emotional when I'm like feeling pain, and I get emotional when I'm feeling joy a lot and gratitude. And I got to tell you, I'd love to meet this lady. When all this social distance is over, maybe we'll try to get her on the show or something. Maybe I don't know. We need to talk to people like this. It brings tears to my eyes because it gave me hope and pride in being an American. Now, it's not like Michelle Obama said, this is the first time I've ever been proud of our country. It makes me proud, period, to be an American. And it gives me hope that we got a chance. It's a small one, but it's a chance to actually turn things around in this country. I think we started it with the election of Donald Trump, but that's not a guarantee we're going to reelect him, no matter what you may think. Now, I'm hoping and praying and going to do everything I can to reelect him, but, maybe something good can come out of this. I mean, this is the bottom line in this story for me, that maybe, and I'm seeing signs of it, maybe something good can actually come out of this terrible situation that we're in, both from the virus and economically. And I'm not downplaying the virus. That's not what I'm doing. But to me, the silver lining in all this is we might get woke enough to realize that we got something worth fighting for here. Because, we talk about things, and one of the things that worries me, and this is way before the coronavirus, been worrying me for a while. We have an all-volunteer military, and they're second to none. I salute our troops at every chance I get. But if we're going to use an all-volunteer military, what would happen if we become a country that's not worth fighting for? And I'm very worried about that we become a country that's not worth stepping up to the plate for. And we are moving in that direction. And that's not to downplay any of the people that are serving our great country or have served. In fact, I tell you all the time that we've got to man the political ramparts, which is exactly what I think this lady in Dallas is doing. She is manning the political ramparts. Think of the courage it takes to do what she's done. It's easy to comply. It takes no courage to comply with government fiat. But to stand up against tyranny takes a great deal of courage. And I do believe that our United States of America government, from the top to the bottom, is practicing tyranny right now. I do believe that. Not everybody, not everywhere, but our federal, and I didn't think a year or two ago I would say that, but our government is practicing tyranny against us. So I applaud this lady, because getting back to the ramparts, if we don't man the political ones like she's doing, we're going to have to man the real ones again. And as I say, that would be a dadgum shame, man. It would be. So we need to wake up. We need to get truly woke. This lady certainly is. We've got to stand up for our constitutional rights, our inalienable God-given rights, not bestowed upon us by any governor or even any president, but by the U.S. Constitution, protecting, not granting our rights, but protecting our God-given rights from who? From the overreach of government. The Constitution, as I remind people all the time, and it's amazing how few people realize this, the Constitution is not to empower government. It is to protect the people from the overreach of government. That's what our country was founded. Our country was founded on contempt. It was founded on contempt for King George. It was founded on a grudge and a grievance. So I'm hoping we'll wake up. And I keep showing this guy, who is one of the least commented on, but one of the greatest Americans that have ever lived, is Patrick Henry. And I'm going to keep showing this over and over and over again, because people know give me liberty or give me death. Sometimes they don't want to know who said it, but they don't know the context of it. It's not that he just wants freedom or die. That's true. But if you read the greater speech of what he made, what he's saying in that, and I think it rings as true today as ever, is that simply existing, in other words, breathing, being alive, it's important, but it's not enough. And what he's essentially saying, if all I'm going to do is exist, especially exist for the sake of the state, then give me liberty or give me death, because that's just not enough. All right, we're going to move on. That article just really jumped out at me. I salute Miss Luther. We need more like her. I appreciate you, ma'am. You don't know how much you've lifted this good old salty dog's heart up here. I really appreciate you. And if, maybe we need to look into ways to help her. If she starts like a GoFundMe page, I'm sure I will try to contribute to it. This next story is from Politico, and it's about old sleepy, creepy Uncle Joe. And, we've heard a lot, mostly from the people on the right, so to speak, like me, I suppose. I've never really considered I hadn't said this in a while, but of course, if I say it, it bears repeating. I used to be mayor of my little town. I've been on political boards as well, and I've had to cast a lot of different votes. Some of them I was proud to cast. Some of them later on I said, what the heck were you thinking at the time? But the one thing I've never really done is weighed my decision based on whether it was a conservative decision or a liberal decision or whatever. I just made at the time what I thought was the best decision based on the facts, the evidence before me, and what I thought was in the best interest of whatever position I was serving. By that, I mean like my community and that kind of thing. I always let other people decide whether it was a conservative or liberal or whatever. Now, I obviously, if you listen to me, know that I probably am leaning always more towards the conservative side. I never really considered myself the conservative. You know who told me that I was conservative? Liberal people. They actually told me that, hey, you know, you're actually pretty conservative. I used to be a Democrat, and I started getting attacked by Democrats for being conservative. And I never even labeled myself. Anyway, I hadn't said that in a while. Just wanted to get that out there. But this is from Politico. Let me take a little sip here. I'm John Martin, not Dean Martin, so you guess what may be in there. From Politico, Reid talking about this lady, the Tara Reid, that has accused Joe Biden of assaulting her, sexually assaulting her. Reid allegation hurts Biden's bid to unite Democrats. You know, this as I kind of lost my train of thought, Billy Bob tells me to get back on track. If you hadn't met my psychic sidekick, Billy Bob Bass, he has a Twitter handle, by the way. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. Of course, you can always chime in on any of the Facebook networks you're listening to. I'm getting hundreds of comments now. I respond to them as quickly as possible, usually within 3 or 4 hours of the show. So you got good things, bad things, questions, just put them out there. I'll respond to them. You can also check out our show on YouTube. Spell it out, John Martin Talks. We appreciate your subscribers. We're growing a little slowly, but a little bit every day. We'd appreciate as many views as you can give us there. It kind of pumps up the numbers. You can also watch us along the America's Voice News Network, not only on their Facebook channel, which you might be watching now. Howdy, how are you? Welcome to it. But we're rebroadcast on their network. You can download the free app from iPhone, Android. We're on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV, Dish Network, Channel 219, Pluto Network, and it's growing every day. America's Voice News. Check that out. But Joe Biden has been talked about being pushed aside for a while. And I think mostly it's been talk, and to a certain extent it still is. But there is a bit of traction. And if these poll numbers are actually true, old Joe might be in trouble. Joe Biden's biggest job right now is to unite the party after a divisive primary. Was it that divisive? Really? I guess it ended up being divisive between him and Bernie. Although I don't know that Bernie was all that divisive. That's the problem with Bernie Sanders. He's willing to trash Donald Trump. I don't know. I'm sure he would do a lot of trashing of him if they were head to head, but he never got to be head to head and never will get head to head with Trump, primarily because he wouldn't take on the Democrats who he was trying to defeat. He gave a pass to Hillary Clinton for the most part, and a total pass to Joe Biden in the one time they had a chance to debate head to head. Bernie he didn't step up. But so I don't know how divisive that primary really was. The Tara Reid allegations aren't helping, according to this writer. Here's the thing. So the Democrats, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, because there's some senators that are calling for a potential investigation. Could Dems be holding Biden to an actual standard? Because we hear this term all the time about a double standard, and I tell you all the time, there isn't a double standard. There's one standard, and it's for conservatives, people who support Trump, the president, all that, Republicans. They are held to a standard. What standard are the Democrats held to? I mean, this whole Tara Reid thing has shown you that some people can say, oh, women are to be to believe, absolutely, men should shut up, and oh, I believe everything Joe says. You know, I mean, if you ever wondered whether there was actually a double standard, this thing shows you there is no double standard, because the progressive left, which is the mainstream of the Democratic Party, they have no standard. They're held to no standard. Anything goes, man. Because keep in mind, for the Democrats, and I'm not saying this isn't a certain level true of all political parties, but it's certainly for the progressive leftists that are controlling the Democratic Party, winning is all that matters. That's all that matters. The ends justifies the means no matter what. It doesn't matter. Joe can get a pass because he's trying to beat Donald Trump. So, Trump derangement syndrome is real. A new poll and interviews with Democratic strategists indicate that the sexual assault charges immediately complicate the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee's efforts to broaden his support. So they're saying this Tara Reade thing is interfering with Joe's support, or at least to coalesce behind Joe. Let me ask you this. Really, does Joe actually have any support? I'm not saying tens of millions of Democrats won't vote for him. In fact, they will. Even some of Tara Reade's witnesses said that they thought what Joe did was terrible. They corroborated her story and still said they were going to vote for Joe Biden. So Joe Biden could be the next president of the United States. Whoever the Democratic nominee could be. But does Joe, and I'll get more into that in just a moment, but does Joe really have any support? Is anyone passionate about Joe Biden? Now, I know they're passionately anti-Trump, but I don't know about you, but when I challenge anybody about Joe Biden, they never respond with anything Joe's done or hadn't done. They basically just go into an anti-Trump rage. It's just amazing how that is. And, Eric Trump, he posted something the other day, pretty funny. We got it right here. Basically said that this, easing of social distancing, keeping 10 people in a group or less will help Biden because he can actually have a rally now. Obviously President Trump, man, you got more people standing in line at a portalet of a Trump rally than you do going to a Joe Biden rally. The Political Morning Consult poll released Tuesday shows that more than a third of voters believe Democrats should abandon Biden as their nominee over the recent claims from the former Senate aide that date back to the early 1990s. Think about that. A third of Democrats are saying. Now, is it a coincidence that number essentially equals the baseline support of Bernie Sanders? Could be. Could be they're just feeling burned and they're using it as excuse. I suspect, because I've seen polling of Sanders, there's about 10% that say that they're not going to vote for Biden, period, of Bernie supporters. But that means that the other, 90% of them say that they're going to vote for Biden. So I don't know. I think it represents certainly the Bernie side of the party, but maybe a little more. The survey conducted in the days after Biden appeared on MSNBC's Morning Joe on Friday that was last Friday, to deny charges for the first time found 28% of Democrats definitely or probably favor replacing Biden with another nominee to take on President Donald Trump in November. Well, one thing I will tell you Bernieites out there, what is the one name? They talk about replacing Biden, and they mention everything from Michelle Obama to any of these other candidates that ran before. And, of course, now Mario Cuomo is kind of the darling of the moment. I mean, not Andrew Cuomo, not Mario. And Mario's boy, Andrew, is like the darling of the moment. But what is the one name that never comes up to replace Joe Biden, but actually should be the one that's at the top of the list? How about the guy in second place right now? Because the primary is actually technically still going on. How about Bernie Sanders? They never mention him as a logical choice to Joe Biden. Now, I don't know about you Bernieites out there, you Bernie bros, but if I were you, that would piss me off. I'm just saying. The prospect, while exceedingly remote, comes as Biden works to coalesce the support of liberals and younger voters who back someone else in the primary. Did you see, by the way, and I don't recall the exact date yet, but a judge has now ruled that the New York primary, which was suspended, has now got to come back. Because technically speaking, keep in mind, Joe is several hundred votes away from getting the 1,900 and change votes he needs in delegates to win outright. So he still could be facing a contested convention, assuming they even have one. So that's still a possibility. And remember, Bernie was adamant about people coming out to vote for him. In fact, he did some campaign stuff in New York even after he suspended his campaign. He won people on the ballot delegates, so he was upset when the New York primary was canceled. But Biden might, and Biden was glad, but Biden might actually need the votes, assuming he gets the majority out of New York. He probably wants the primaries to continue now that if he's thinking about it at all. Certainly his handlers are, because he needs to get over that 1,900 and change threshold he needs so that he can put this baby to bed. But it says here, it also underscores the tensions in the party, talking about the Democratic Party, amid the international movement against harassment and sexual assault. So let me ask you, is the Me Too, hashtag Me Too, however you want, is it real? Is it actually real? because it seems to me, and they were talking about international movement of sexual assault primarily against women and how it's been growing. But I guess this Biden thing has thrown a monkey wrench in. I saw a really funny meme. It's a real picture that had Oprah Winfrey. It's pretty funny if we could post it up there. It's one of the funnier ones I've seen in a while. Like that moment you realize that you might not be here for a new car. You might be being used. She might be pimping you out. Camila Rivera, let me give you some examples of some of the thought process of the Democratic Party. Camille Rivera, a Democratic strategist with a progressive firm in New York, said, the Democratic Party faces a real crisis of conscience, talking about this Biden situation. We have spent so much effort and energy calling out Donald Trump. That's probably the main thing that pisses them off. It kind of detracts from one of the weapons they had of, Trump hates women kind of thing. Calling out Donald Trump and creating a movement around the importance of believing women. At the same time, we have a troubling accusation about our Democratic nominee. So am I hearing courage from a Democrat? Are those senators we talked about yesterday, are they stepping up to the plate maybe is there some courage? Is there actually a standard coming out of the Democratic Party? It could appear so. I'm not totally convinced of that. I'm not questioning this lady's sincerity, but I think much of it is because they're afraid that the old Joester can't win. I think that's quite a bit of it. But during a virtual fundraiser, remember Joe was on this show with Mika Brzezinski, and he denied it ever happened. And all the people lining up to be vice president said that's good enough for them, all the women, which shows you kind of what I've been talking about. But during a virtual fundraiser with former staffers of President Barack Obama, Biden said that he's not concerned about what evidence about the claim might emerge. So in other words, things might come out because I know the truth of the matter. If you're not concerned about the evidence, Joe, then why don't you release the University of Delaware papers, your papers that are under seal at the University of Delaware that you could open up today if you wanted to. So if you're not worried about it, then just sign the release and open them up. And Mika Brzezinski actually asked him that, and he basically said, nothing to see here, move on. Said Stephanie Cutter, a Democratic strategist and former senior advisor to Obama, so she's probably pretty liberal. I think in the long run, she's defending Biden, I think in the long run, Biden will get points for standing up and doing the right thing. What exactly is that? What did he exactly do? Stand up and say, it never happened. I mean, that's all. That's it. He denied it happened, but said her voice should be heard. So, it never happened. Her voice should be heard, and now let's move on. Treated her respectfully. Really? And he basically called her a liar, right? I don't know how with all due respect, respectfully, and called for records to be released. Keep that in mind. That's a contrast to the current president in every way. Really? I mean, the records to be released. Remember, we talked about this. Biden called for the records of the U.S. Senate to be released. The actual Senate records, knowing full well that is not legal to do. Now, he didn't call for the release of the slush fund paying off sexual predators in the U.S. Congress that you and I are paying for. He didn't call for that. But he called for, if there's any allegations in the Senate record out there, release them. Knowing, since he's been in politics and in the Senate, since he first got fired from his job as mate on the ark, man. I mean, this dude knows, at least I think he should know, that is not legal. What he's requested for is not legal. It should be, but it's not. But the records that could be released, like the University of Delaware records, he said nothing to see there. Said Meredith Kelly, a Democratic strategist who worked with Christian Gillibrand. I knew her name would come back up eventually. Presidential's campaign. And I got a meme I saved for a long time just in case her name came back up. It's actually not a meme. It's a photograph. Look at that. Look at the people she's hanging around with. And she's, maybe she's just trying to be eye candy for those dudes. I don't know. But this is what Gillibrand said. She's Meredith Kelly, a Democratic strategist who worked for Gillibrand. Let me get it correct. Said, I expect that as Democratic voters learn more about this strong denial, I guess that's what you have to, if your denial is strong enough, that's all that matters, and specific calls for transparency, which is total BS, and any concerns about this will dissipate. She might be right. I mean, if Biden gets on the ticket, then, and trust me on this, if there's serious talk about removing Biden from the ticket from inside the Democratic Party, it's got Zippo to do with Tara Reid. It only, and it only in the sense that it might hurt Biden's chances of winning. It's all about winning. If they think that Biden is the best candidate to beat Donald Trump, it doesn't matter if evidence comes out that Reid is correct. And there is evidence that has come out, by the way, that Reid is correct. Much more so than was against Brett Kavanaugh. And we saw what all happened there. But it's all about beating Donald Trump. This campaign in 2020, now things could change, but this campaign is not about Joe Biden. If it's about Joe Biden, Donald Trump wins in a landslide. It's about Trump derangement syndrome and just how widespread that virus is. That's what really the 2020 election is all about. Said Rose Kapelinski, a Democratic strategist in California, when people are voting in November, this charge will be just one data point. So this lady, not only women are not, don't believe them, don't hear them, but they're just a data point. That's all. Amid Biden's record of stable, competent leadership and Trump's miserable record of failing the American people. Wow. Biden's competent leadership. Does anyone ever accuse Biden of that? Has Biden ever been perceived as a leader? He certainly wasn't in the previous presidential elections where he never even won a primary or caucus. It's Trump derangement syndrome that's got Biden to the top. That's it. It has nothing to do with Joe Biden. If it has to do with Joe Biden, he can't win. But just a side note. Did you see where the president now is going to revitalize? It was CAGA, Keep America Great. He's going back to MAGA, Make America Great Again. Basically, I did it once. You reelect me, we're going to do it again because we are sagging. There's no doubt about it. And there's so get ready to see a lot more MAGA hats, you snowflakes out there, and they're melting them. Because think about it, the MAGA hat is not a trigger. It's not that the people wearing it are racist. It actually is a trigger to you. And I think that meme pretty much explains it. But I want to close this story by, let me check my time, I'm doing good, by saying this right here, that keep in mind the Democrats have an advantage. I'm not talking about Joe Biden. I'm talking about any Democrat because they win California, they win Illinois, they win New York, and they win Massachusetts absent some kind of miracle. That's just the way it is. So it gives them a big electoral bump right off the bat. So keep that in mind. There is no guarantee that Donald Trump wins. If the election were held today, I believe he will win. But here's the message that needs to go out there. Take nothing for granted. You need to listen to what my dear old daddy used to say, who was a big leader in politics in the state of Florida. He said you got to campaign like you're 2 votes behind, and the next 2 people you see are going to put you over the top. And that's how we need to work for Donald Trump. He's going to do his part. I'm not even remotely worried about that. But with Donald Trump, but with you need to run like he's 2 votes behind. All right, well, we've got enough time for this story. I wanted to get to this story, so we're going to move along. This is a CNN story. I wanted to cover it yesterday, but better late than never. CNN sends Trump campaign cease and desist letter for misleading ad. So CNN is saying that something that the Trump campaign is misleading. Well, they probably got a doctorate degree in that, right? A law of misleading. A lawyer for CNN's parent company, Warner Media, has written a cease and desist letter to President Trump's re-election campaign over the misleading contents of a new ad. I tried to find the ad. I couldn't seem to find it. But let me just tell you this right now. And I'm just telling you like it is. One thing about here, man, you're not going to get political correctness. You're just going to get the unvarnished, scrub away all that old nasty stuff, get to the hardwood truth, unvarnished truth. That's what you're going to get here. Some of my opinionated fact, but fact nonetheless. But there's no campaign ad that's not misleading. They're all misleading because every one of them tells you the other guy sucks and we're, all that in a bag of chips. And the truth is somewhere in the middle there, right? So I've never seen a political ad that wasn't at some point misleading. Because I don't care, even if the person is, at the right hand of God, there's going to be at least 1 or 2 people that think he's a scalawag, right? So the fact that you're telling me he's all that in a bag of chips is going to be, you're going to know that, hey, at least 2 people don't believe that. And when you tell me that the guy's the worst thing that ever lived, well, if his mama's still alive, she loves him. So they're misleading. Every political ad is misleading. It just are. If they're not very good. Warner Media says the Trump ad is misusing CNN's news coverage. Do they actually cover the news in a way that's false, misleading, and deceptive? False, misleading, and deceptive. That pretty much describes CNN, doesn't it? Pretty much sums it. That could be, instead of like whatever I forget what their thing is now, but it could be CNN, the leader in false, misleading, and deceptive news. That could really be their tagline. The Trump campaign had no immediate response to a request for comment from CNN Business. I think the ad is a comment in and of itself. Do they really need to comment? If they're being false and misleading, there's their comment right there. The ad takes a segment from CNN's The Situation Room out of context. Wow. Like President Trump hadn't been taken out of context. Blitzer, so it's a conversation between Wolf Blitzer and Sanjay Gupta, the greatest doctor that ever lived. Blitzer is heard asking, is it accurate that if these steps had not been put in place, talking about Trump's like travel ban, stuff like that, it could have been 2 million people dead here in the United States? And Gupta is heard as saying yes. Well, what's out of context about that? It has to be true. But CNN takes everything that President Trump says out of context. And there's tons of evidence of this, but probably the most egregious one, and they play it even today on a regular basis. Keep in mind, Joe Biden literally opened his campaign with this out-of-context lie. It wasn't even just out of context, just a lie. Where President Trump said there's both good people on both sides of that issue in Charlottesville. He wasn't talking about the Nazis and Antifa. He was talking about the people who had differences of opinion about whether the Confederate statue of Robert E. Lee should be taken down. He said on that issue, there's good people on both sides. And then he immediately, just a few seconds later, go read the transcript yourself. Don't take my word for it, although you could. Go back and look at it. President Trump immediately after saying that condemned white nationalists and Nazis specifically. So it's been a lie out of context. Rick McMurtry, Associate General Counsel for Warner Media, wrote in a letter to Tim Murtaugh, who is the Trump campaign's communication director. This is what McMurtry wrote. CNN hereby demands that you discontinue airing the advertisement with the CNN clip that has been distorted in such a way as to mislead the public. Now, I would ask this. Did CNN ever say that? Talking about misleading the public, I'm going to play this ad. I'm sure you've seen it. It's a couple of years old. Hopefully we can play it. We've had some video issues, but I'm hoping we can get it done. It's an ad that Ralph Northam, the current governor of Virginia, played against Ed Gillespie and to a certain extent Donald Trump. Play this ad and you tell me what's misleading, if we can do it. We're trying. I guess we're not going to be able to. We're in a new studio. We're still trying to work out some of the bugs, so I apologize. You can find it yourself very easy. Look up Ralph Northam, Ed Gillespie ad. It's the one where you got this dark black truck with like a Trump sticker on the back and a rebel flag, and they're chasing children of color. Remember that ad? It turns out that Ralph Northam, even though it was put out by a PAC, was actually the person driving that truck. But you want to talk about a deceptive ad, and I've never once heard CNN criticize. Matter of fact, I would challenge it, and if you got an example out there, please post it to me on Facebook or something. Let me know. I don't remember CNN ever challenging an ad that was against Donald Trump. I don't remember it at all. Well, it's really going to be interesting to see if they prevail on that. According to McMurtry's letter, CNN contacted the Trump campaign ad agency, Harris Sykes Media, to demand the ad be edited to remove or correct the misuse. CNN was willing to accept the advertisement if the misuse had been corrected. So in other words, if the ad was meaningless and didn't actually point out the ridiculous BS of CNN, then CNN would not have had any problem with it. I mean, give me a break. Cease and desist of misleading, false information. CNN actually has the cojones to stand up and say that when their entire news organization, I'm going to repeat this one more time and we'll close the show, man, where it says right here that the Trump ad that's false, misleading, and deceptive. If that's not the new tagline for CNN, I don't know what is. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you today. Please go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it and share it with others. Remember our YouTube channel, John Martin Talks, Twitter at John Martin Talks, and at Billy Bob Bass. We're also on America's Voice News, so we're growing every day. We really appreciate all the support we're getting. And like I've been saying for the last few weeks during the lockdown, I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Of course, every day I say from my heart, and I mean it, from my heart, from my family to yours. Have a blessed day.